The story you are about to hear is disturbing, but it must be exposed. Viewer discretion is advised. This video is not made for children. It deals with themes of child harm and exploitation, topics that are painful but necessary to confront. My purpose is not to sensationalize, but to shine a light on the truth, hold accountable the systems and institutions that cover it up, and give a voice to survivors whose stories have been silenced. If we don't talk about it, it continues unchecked, and I refuse to stay silent.
My mother and my stepdad were ministers at the church. All you had to do is walk down the steps from the church. You walk into our kitchen. And that's where he raped me. I woke up with him on top of me many of times.
There's a loophole in all of this, and people are calling it, quote, a get out of jail free card for some of these men that are getting married to young girls.
Right, it's statutory rape. In Sherry's case, for example, it was a felony for that man to have sex with a 9-year-old girl. He should have gone to prison for a long time. Instead, he got a marriage license, and because this 11-year-old is now his wife, he can legally consummate the marriage. She had baby after baby after baby at the age of 12, 13, 14, 15, was told she's too young to get a divorce, too young to go to a domestic abuse shelter, too young to hire a lawyer to try and get child support from her deadbeat husband, and yet she wasn't too young to get married.
What about the parents of these young children? Shouldn't they be held accountable for this at all?
Ultimately, if a parent has legal guardianship over their child, they can make these decisions.
My name is Sherry Yvonne Johnson. I was raped. I got pregnant at the age of 9. I gave birth to my daughter at the age of 10. Was forced to marry my rapist at the age of 11. When we got married, he was 20 and I was 11. I had a total of 6 children by the age of 17 when I got a divorce in my first marriage.
Sherry Yvonne Johnson's story is horrifying, but it is not unique. Children, minors being forced to marry.
I was able to enter into it legally because of the 2 loopholes that states in the Florida statutes that anyone can be married at any age. If you have a child with the consent of a parent, you can be married with the discretion of a judge. So that's exactly the loopholes that I fell through, and no one actually protected me. They protected him by putting the handcuffs on me instead of putting the handcuffs on him, and he was the rapist.
When a crime is committed, the criminal wants witnesses to keep silent. But silence comes at a price. Sometimes the price of silence is fear and threats. The witnesses is threatened to keep their mouth shut. Sometimes the price of silence is fear and intimidation. Maybe important position, maybe a job. But when the witness is a little girl, only 8 years old, has no job, has no position, and she's been raped by an adult, a respected leader of the community. Not just a respected leader of the community, but in a place you call refuge, a place of peace. What the price of silence for that 8-year-old victim was a price of silence for her mother. It was a sacrifice of some sort. In this case, the witness is also the victim. Her name is Destiny. She's in the 5th grade. The crime took place early one morning when Destiny was on her way to school. She stopped by the house that her aunt and the bishop live, the bishop of Destiny's church. Her aunt was out, but the bishop was there. When the bishop told Destiny to lie down, she did. After all, she was only 8 years old, and she grew up in the church. What happened next was pain and horror. It changed Destiny's life forever. She was shocked, that she didn't tell anyone, not her mother, not the teachers. She went to school. She staggered through her classes in a daze. A few days later, the bishop came to Destiny's house. He paid a call to her mother. The bishop brought Destiny a present, a pink bicycle with a red bow. Destiny said thank you, but she knew it was being paid to keep the attack silent. The bishop held his arms open for a hug, but Destiny did not go to him. Her mother scolded, "Destiny, what's wrong with you? The bishop just gave you a gift." So Destiny went to the bishop. She did not want to, but she allowed him to put his arms around her. And the bishop pulled Destiny close and whispered in her ear, "You better not ever tell a soul what happened between you and me." For Destiny, there was a price of silence, was a threat, and a pink bicycle with a red bow. Over the next few years, Destiny was raped again, and again by the bishop and two other men, one being the deacon of the church, the other being Destiny's mother's husband.
Child brides. They're too young to legally drink, vote, or consent to sex, but in most states, underage girls are allowed to marry older men with the parents' permission. It's often called the marry your rapist loophole, and the consequences are devastating. I sat down with journalist Elizabeth Vargas to discuss this very controversial issue.
I was never a child who played wedding. I was never someone who sat around and dreamed about wedding dresses. And so I'm probably not the typical story you would imagine when you think about a child bride.
In America, a shocking number of girls under the age of consent are being forced to marry against their will because of legal loopholes in most states.
How is this happening?
Child marriage remains legal in 48 states.
And it's happening right here.
I just felt so dehumanized.
Now, award-winning journalist Elizabeth Vargas is tackling the taboo issue in A&E's I Was a Child Bride, The Untold Story. So, Elizabeth, how common is child marriage in America today?
More common than you think, Jesse. I mean, nearly 250,000 child brides were married between 2000 and 2010.
Wow.
When I told people I was working on a special on child brides, they were like, "Oh, did you go to Afghanistan or Pakistan?" And I was like, "No, we went to Missouri and Florida and Texas."
And you interviewed Sherry, who got married at the shocking age of 11.
Sherry was actually raped as a child when she was just 9 years old. She got pregnant when she was 10 years old and didn't know it. Went at the age of 10 and had this baby, and then at the age of 11 was forced to marry her rapist, this deacon in the church.
Sherry Johnson's story is a warning. Sherry Johnson was only 11 years old when she was forced into marriage in Florida after suffering harm within her church community. Instead of protecting her, the system enabled her exploitation. Her case made national headlines, but the shocking truth is this: what happened to Sherry is not an isolated story. Between 2000 and 2018, nearly 300,000 children were married in the U.S., most of them girls wed to adult men. Today, in 34 states, it is still legal for minors to marry under certain exceptions. In 4 states, there is no minimum age at all. This means children as young as 12, 13, or 14 can still legally be married in America. How is this possible? Loopholes in the law. In many states, all it takes is parental permission or a judge's approval. In some cases, pregnancy is used as a justification. What would otherwise be considered statutory sexual abuse suddenly becomes legal under the label of marriage. There has been progress, but not enough. Since 2018, 16 states and Washington, D.C. have banned all marriages under 18, with no exceptions. Delaware was the first. New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, Virginia, and most recently Michigan have followed. On the federal level, the Child Marriage Prevention Act of 2024 was introduced in the U.S. Senate. It would create a national commission to study child marriage and incentivize states to ban it. Advocates see this as a critical first step. Child marriage devastates lives. It cuts short education, increases the risk of poverty, and traps many in harmful and abusive situations. Survivors describe decades of pain before finally finding freedom. And let's be clear, silence is not neutral. When courts, families, and faith institutions allow this to happen, they are complicit. Sherry Johnson's story is America's story. Until every state raises the age to 18 with no exceptions, children remain at risk. This is a violation of human rights, and it's still happening today. We must stand with survivors, demand change, and refuse to accept a system that sacrifices children under the cover of law.
They always came to Destiny's apartment when her mother was working at the church. They knew Destiny was alone. How could Destiny's mother not know what was going on? Well, Destiny's mother was a volunteer of the church. The church was the center of her life. She thrived on praise from the church community. Destiny's mother did not know because she did not want to know. Finally, Destiny broke down and told her mother about the rapes. Her mother accused Destiny of lying, and she gave the child a severe beating. When Destiny was 10 years old, she gave birth to her baby, the deacon's baby. 1 year later, when Destiny was 11, her mother gave permission for Destiny to marry the deacon. Her mother did this to protect the deacon. Destiny's mother even made her wedding dress, her veil, and her cake. I'm sorry to tell you, it gets worse. All of this was planned long in advance. Remember, Destiny had her baby 1 full year prior to her getting married. But a year before the marriage, the birth certificate of that baby already had Destiny listed as Mrs. The certificate gave her the deacon's last name and not her own. Obviously, some state officials was in on this. You may wonder why the deacon was not arrested. How could it be legal for the government to issue a marriage license for a child? Where did this horror take place? In some faraway country? No. Right here in the United States of America, in the state of Florida. You see, Destiny is the name I gave myself many years later when I wrote the chapter in my book. I will not burden you with this story, except that there is a problem. It's much, much bigger than just one person. Oh yes, child marriage was against the law in Florida at that time, but there are loopholes in the law. One loophole says child marriage was legal if a parent gave permission for the child to marry. Another loophole is preteen pregnancy. Another loophole for marriage is the judge gives consent. In other words, raping and impregnating a child become licensed to go on raping and impregnating a child under the cover of the law.
Inequality. Now, just world for all women and girls child marriage in the United States. Learn more about the loopholes that allow marriage under the age of 18 in the majority of U.S. states. Equality now a just world for all women and girls. The statutory rape exception. Statutory rape occurs when one of the parties to sexual activity is below the age of consent. It does not have to be forcible because a minor is not legally able to provide consent. In most states, child marriage is considered as a valid defense to statutory rape. The marital defense to statutory rape also used to be permitted under federal law in 18 U.S.C. Section 2243. While 18 U.S.C. 2243 was amended by the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act of 2022 to eliminate this statutory rape defense, a similar defense still exists in the United States Military Code under 10 U.S.C. Section 920B. The exception under 10 U.S.C. Section 920B and similar exceptions under state laws suggests that the U.S. government condones the practice of child marriage, giving sexual predators an incentive to force a child to marry them to evade criminal liability. The law can effectively turn child marriage into a get-out-of-jail-free card for predators. These laws must be repealed to align U.S. laws with international standards and discourage child marriage and rape in the country.
At the time this happened to me, child marriage was legal in every state. Today, at this moment, child marriage is still legal in 47 states. The same loophole exists in many states. Every year, this evil system winks and nods as child brides are married off. This system looks the other way as children are forced to be married to men 2, 3, and 4 times their age. This is a system of legal rape. I hate to tell you how big this problem really is. From 2000 to 2010, there were more than 260,000 child marriages in America. That is more than 500 marriages, child marriages, a day, every day of the year in the United States. In medicine, when you fight a disease, there are 2 strategies: prevention and cure. In my case, there was no prevention. As for a cure, I don't know if there is a complete cure, but I had to try to heal myself as a child when I got pregnant again and again. For many years, there was no one I could talk with. I had no way to release my pain. Again and again, I would tell myself, this will pass. But for a long time, it did not pass. By the age of 17, I had 6 children. That same year, I divorced my rapist. I got married. What kind of a person does abused person marry? Another abuser. It is a repeated cycle. I went through a couple of marriages and divorces the same way. By the time I was 27, I had 9 children. At one point, certain members of the church wanted to take my children from me, and I refused. I was their mother. I brought them into the world. I felt responsible to protect my children from what I knew had happened to me could happen to them.
What we're about to hear is so shocking, it's hard to believe. Children as young as 11 years old forced to marry the men who raped them.
Yeah, and what's even worse here, Florida law allows this to happen. New tonight, ABC Action News anchor Paul Lagrone exposes the marriage license loophole that essentially legalizes child rape, and the local woman who's inspiring lawmakers to finally take action.
Far beyond the Hollywood glare of the Me Too movement, a different kind of sexual assault is coming out of the shadows in the Sunshine State. Buried right there in Florida marriage laws is a loophole that allows children under the age of 16 to get married if they're pregnant and if they have the consent of their parents.
It ended my life.
It happened to Sherry Johnson. Inside this Tampa church, her childhood was cut short.
I gave birth to my daughter at the age of 10, and then I was forced to marry my rapist at the age of 11.
To keep the abuse a secret, Sherry says her parents forced her to marry a 20-year-old man, a man she says raped her. She became a wife and a mother by the 5th grade.
I didn't know until it was done.
You were a child.
I was a child. I had no idea how this was going to happen.
And
a Tulsa pastor is behind bars charged with rape, child sex abuse, and incest. He just resigned from his church over the weekend. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Shay Razi.
And I'm Nathan Thompson. Sarah has the night off. We first told you at 5, according to an affidavit, BM Judge Bailey Sr. began sexually assaulting his victim when she was a child.
It goes on to say the abuse got worse as she got older. Until recently, Pastor B.M. Judge Bailey Sr. was a reverend at St. Andrew Christian Church near 36th Street North and MLK in North Tulsa. That all changed last week when a woman made a post on Facebook naming him as her abuser. She wrote, quote, "As a victim of sexual and mental abuse at the hands of Pastor Bailey for over a decade, I feel compelled to warn others about his predatory behavior. Despite his status as a respected member of the community, it is essential to shed light on his actions to prevent further harm to unsuspecting individuals." According to an affidavit, the abuse took place at home and started when the victim was in 6th grade. Court records say, quote, "It began with the defendant praying over her body and touching her." She told police the abuse became worse as she got older, with Bailey allegedly coming into her bedroom and raping her. According to court documents, the abuse continued when she became an adult, saying Bailey entered her home unannounced, pushed her to the floor, and sexually abused her just weeks after she had a baby. Earlier this month, the victim and her mother went to police about the alleged abuse. The affidavit shows some of their text messages with Bailey, with him saying, quote, "I am an adulterer. I am a child molester. I am a rapist." Investigators say in another message, Bailey confessed to watching pornography involving incest and said, quote, "He felt justified in acting out what was shown in the pornography because it was what people do." Police also say they have recordings and additional witness statements to corroborate the victim's story. After Tulsa police arrested Bailey Wednesday afternoon, his family released a statement saying to the victim, quote, "You are a strong, intelligent, and a talented young woman. No one should ever have their trust and safety violated in such a horrific way. We are all so deeply sorry this happened to you." Another alleged victim has come forward following the survivor's Facebook post. Tulsa police say that investigation is underway. In the meantime, Bailey is being held on $500,000 bond. We also reached out to St. Andrew Christian Church for a statement. We will share their response once we get it.
Jamal Paris says he's now haunted by a father figure, Bishop Eddie Long, pastor of New Birth Missionary Baptist, one of America's most powerful megachurches.
I cannot get the sound of his voice out of my head, and I cannot forget the smell of his cologne, and I cannot forget the way that he made me cry many nights when I drove in his cars on the way home, not able to take enough showers to wipe the smell of him off of my body.
As teens, Paris and 3 other young men claim Long adopted them as his spiritual sons, then exploited them. Their civil suits allege Long used scripture, cars, jewelry, and trips on his private plane in a sexual seduction.
That's not a father. That's a predator.
Long built this megachurch into 25,000 members. 4 U.S. presidents attended Coretta Scott King's funeral here. He flaunts his wealth and his physique. His so-called muscular Christianity preaches homosexuality is sinful. Now these allegations.
I have never in my life portrayed myself as a perfect man, but I am not the man that's being portrayed on the television.
But here's what makes many church members here wonder. Long has never taken his public denials one step further, never said flatly these allegations are false. All 4 teens met Georgia's legal age of consent, but that's hardly the moral standard for any pastor.
You are not a man, you are a monster.
Allegations that leave Long's congregation trying to decide whether their pastor is a predator.
We begin with a Tulsa pastor charged with raping his own daughter. And tonight she tells us coming forward is key to her recovery.
Pastor B.M. Bailey Sr. was a staple of the North Tulsa community, but now he's in the Tulsa County Jail accused of numerous charges, including first-degree rape and incest. I'm Braden Bates. Harmony Oates is his daughter. She's trying to rebuild what she says was taken from her starting when she was just in the 6th grade. She was ready to share her story, sitting down with me, telling me her message to those living in the shadow.
It feels like I'm not in the shadows anymore. Think of a 13-year-old girl confused about who her true love is because her dad is saying, I'm your boyfriend.
Pastor Bailey's position as a community leader was something that challenged Oates.
I knew how to set a boundary, but whenever he's your father and whenever he's a pastor and whenever he has this authority and he has a record, it's like, you say no, but what does your no mean?
She says she was alone, suffering in silence as her father inappropriately touched her.
He would pray over me at first, but he would do a lot of touching while he was praying.
She says the years of manipulating made her ask questions.
The thing is, whenever I was a kid, I separated my dad from who he was. I had to. That's the only way I survived. I would call him my best friend, only to hide the reality of what I was living.
She tells me she first told her husband, an older brother, then had the difficult conversation with her mom. Now she's taking his alleged sexual abuse public.
Coming out of the darkness by speaking out makes you a survivor. That's what I would say.
She says she hopes others feel empowered to speak out. In her recovery, she's rediscovering God, separate from her father.
I'm learning on trusting God more, and I know he has me, and he has every other victim, and I know that he has been guiding me through this whole journey. And I know he will comfort me like a father, even though my dad did not.
Pastor Bailey is charged with 2 counts of first-degree rape, incest, forcible sodomy, and first-degree burglary.
All right, and after a story that we've been following for over a year now, a local pastor was charged with sexually assaulting an underage family member whom he allegedly impregnated when the victim was just 14 years old. That pastor is due back in court tomorrow for a pre-trial hearing. We first brought you the story last year after the allegations surfaced. Tonight, another one of the alleged victim's relatives who spoke out against the pastor then is speaking to us again. KPRC2's Devin Clark is live downtown Houston with his message ahead of tomorrow's hearing.
Well, he's been back and forth to court over the last year.
In October last year, we told you about Pastor Robert L. Carter, who was charged with continued sexual abuse of a child and sexual assault of a child aged 14 to 17. Carter accused of doing this to a young family member.
How could you show your face in a church where you profess to keep the word or speak the word of God?
This family member, who we are not identifying as to protect the alleged victim's identity, says Carter abused the girl some 600 times, starting when she was just 7 years old, then got her pregnant when she was 14. He says the girl gave birth in a closet. Then Carter took their baby and dropped him off at a fire station.
I mean, it's horrific for one, but it's just been waiting on the judicial system to step in and do what they can do.
This family member says Carter must plead guilty by tomorrow or go to trial, while the Harris County District Attorney's Office says they cannot comment on plea deals before they happen. We have confirmed Carter is due back in court tomorrow.
They have a new judge, a no-nonsense judge, and I think that she's moving the case along as best she can.
Shortly after being charged, Carter posted the $200,000 bond. The alleged victim's family member we've been speaking to says the baby she had, now 6 years old, was adopted by a loving family.
That child is in the best place possible.
As for the alleged victim herself,
she was just tired. She was tired of being afraid.
Her loved one adds she's been working with the prosecutor and working to heal from the trauma Carter caused.
I've never met a woman stronger than that woman there. I've never met a woman who, knowing the facts, can get up every day and not go crazy.
In addition to justice for his loved one, the man you heard from says he hopes this story motivates other potential victims of sexual abuse to come forward. We have a list of resources right now on our website, click2houston.com. And again, Carter due back in court right behind me tomorrow. Reporting outside of the Harris County Criminal Justice Center, Devin Clark, KPRC 2 News.
Horrible.
Yo, I'm sitting here dumbfounded. I just got an email from an organization called Freedom United telling me that there are still girls in 36 states that are still vulnerable to forced marriage under the age of 18 years old. But I had no idea. I feel so uninformed. One of those states is here in Texas. There's 9 states that are considering legislation to actually pass laws to make it where you have to be 18 or older to get married. But 36 states? Are you freaking kidding me? I had no idea. This is in the United States of America, guys. It has to stop. Like, seriously, I'm dumbfounded right now. I cannot believe that this is still legal here in the United States of America. Where the hell have we been? Where have women been to allow this to happen?
It's not just Florida. Every state has loopholes that legalize child marriage. In fact, 25 states don't even bother to set a minimum age. In many cases, the marriages are nothing more than a cover-up to hide child rape by the very men the victims are forced to marry. The numbers in Florida are shocking. In the past 18 years, the state has granted marriage licenses to more than 16,000 children as young as 13. 80% are girls. In 2004, a 13-year-old girl married a 33-year-old man. Since 2015, records show Hillsborough County Court officials approved 86 marriages involving minors as young as 16. In Pinellas County, 51.
I have a lot of questions for the court. I have a lot of questions for the state of Florida. I have a lot of questions for the school. I have a lot of questions for the hospital where I gave birth at. I have a lot of questions for the clinic where I was going to get service while I was pregnant.
And in another cruel twist to the law, Sherry could not get a divorce until she was 18. By that time, she had 6 children with the man she was forced to marry. We tried contacting Sherry's ex-husband, whose last listed address is here in Tampa. No one answered the door.
We're sorry.
And his last listed phone number is out of service.
The door is no longer in service.
Today, Sherry lives in Tallahassee, where she spent the last 5 years urging lawmakers to end child marriage.
We have seen marriage license loopholes used and abused to cover up the sexual abuse of young women.
And now Florida lawmakers are finally doing their part. Just 5 miles away from where Sherry Johnson lives in Tallahassee, 2 different bills are making their way through the Florida legislature, which would for the first time not only end child marriage, but would make Florida the first in the country to do it.
Do you think this is overdue?
Yes.
State Senator Elizabeth Benaquisto is sponsoring a bill that would ban marriage licenses for anyone under 18. No exceptions.
As long as there are the numbers of children being forced into marriages with folks who otherwise would be categorized as sexual predators or sexual offenders, you know you have to take a stand against that.
And tonight that stand has hit a roadblock. State lawmakers arguing over key differences. The Senate bill bans child marriage for anyone under 18, no exceptions. But the House version includes an exception for 16-year-olds who are pregnant and whose partners are no more than 2 years older.
Daily reminder that men across the world need their governments to tell them that they can't marry children. It's 2025, and there are still places where the government has to tell grown-ass men that they can't marry children. If you need a law to tell you that a 13-year-old is not a bride, you're not confused. Nah. You're fucking sick.
As an adult, that I wanted to protect all children, in addition to my own. I asked myself, what can I do? This is where prevention came in. In 2012, I set up a foundation to help abused children. We established a hotline that they can call to get help, or just someone to talk to. That same year, I wrote a book about my story. It was therapy for me, a warning and awareness for others. I wanted to do more. I was still living in Florida. So in 2013, I went to the state capitol. I knocked on the doors to all the state leaders and lawmakers, law changers. I told them my story. I said, will you work with me to change the law? Nobody wanted to help. Finally, a woman in the House representative said, yes, I will sponsor your bill. When I got her support, the tears rolled down my cheek. Our bill passed in the House, but it died in the Senate. I was crushed. I felt like the weight of the world was sitting on my chest. But the next year, I came back to try again. My biker in the House did not want to sponsor the bill again. Her feelings were, we tried, we lost. Our bill was not a winner, so she was moving on to other things. I walked around in circles with my hand on my forehead. What do I do next? I went back knocking on doors. One day I knocked on the door of Senator Lauren Book. Lauren and I had a special connection. She made it her personal cause to end child marriage in the state of Florida. And as of July 1st of this year, our bill became Florida law. Almost every bill gets changed on the way to becoming a law. That happened to our bill too. We wanted the law to say that you must be 18 to get married, period. 18 is when an adult in every way in the state of Florida. But the lawmakers changed the legal marriage to 17. If facts are true, there has to be a financial stability, parents in agreement, 2 years or less in age difference, marriage counseling, and usually the girl has to be pregnant or a single mother. Florida law is not perfect, but it is a giant step in the right direction. And now we're looking for the price of other kinds of silence. Where were the teachers who knew their students were being impregnated all these decades? Why did the social worker did not speak up? Why did the churches did not speak out? What did they get in return for their silence? They say the only thing needed for trump of evil is that good people do nothing. Silence helped the criminal. It cannot continue. What made the difference in Florida? Why did our bill pass? I think the reason is simple. 3 victims were willing to come forward and break the silence, myself and 2 lawmakers. We have more work to do. It is time to enforce the law. In Florida, the police, our public health agencies, and the media are coming together. They work to raise public awareness. They share data. They take active steps to protect children. But we will not stop there in Florida. We're reaching out across the country. We're in touch with the FBI. We're talking with groups for children and children's rights. New laws against child marriage has been passed in New Jersey and Delaware, and we're also working now in Georgia and Louisiana to ban child marriage. I do not say any of this is easy. Yes, there is a price for silence, but there is also a cost for speaking out. It's hard enough for victims to talk about their suffering in private. It's even harder to share painful memories in public. For most victims, it's important to talk about what happened to you in front of committees and reporters and cameras, microphones, audiences. But sadly, child marriage does not seem real to lawmakers until they see and hear someone who says, yes, it's for real. It happened to me. This is what it takes. Personal witnesses make lawmakers pay attention. When voters get angry, it lights a fire under them. At last, they agree to do something about it. If victims and survivors cannot speak for themselves, I'm ready to speak on their behalf. I'm ready to shine a light in the darkness for as long as it takes. And I'm not alone. Every day, more and more activists are shining that light with me. We will not stop until child marriage is wiped out in all 50 states. Lives depend on this. Lives depend on all of us to break the silence and to speak the truth. Thank you.
For somebody who's not yet 18, it's so hard to explain just how overwhelming the obstacles are, because the basic steps that an adult survivor would take with great difficulty are just often not even an option for children. So I am Frady Reese. I was 19 when my family arranged my marriage to a stranger. I was trapped in that marriage for 15 years before I managed to escape.
She founded Unchained at Last, a nonprofit that helps women and girls escape forced marriages.
Women and girls who reach out to Unchained at Last come from nearly every community that you can think of. They're from every major religion and a lot of minor religions, as well as secular backgrounds. Really, what they have in common is that they tend to be women, and that the perpetrators in the forced marriage tend to be their own parents, their own family.
My mom actually told me, she said, "You're going to get married. That's mom. You do what mom say do." So that's what I did.
Children in these situations are powerless, and Frady says current laws fail to protect them.
Children in many states usually are not even allowed to bring a legal action. It's almost ridiculous when you think about the situation where a child is allowed to enter into this serious contract but doesn't have any of the rights necessary to negotiate that contract safely.
Unable to advocate for themselves, children in forced marriages can suffer physically, mentally, and emotionally. Sherry, who is now almost 60, still struggles to come to terms with her stolen childhood.
I'm still dealing with the after effects of having a shaky foundation to start my life off with. To the point right now, I'm still dealing with that.
She wants to make sure what happened to her doesn't happen to anybody else, starting with children in her home state, Florida.
Well, I'm advocating a bill for children not to be able to be married until the age of 18.
Here's a fact. Child marriage or marriage before 18 right now is legal in all 50 U.S. states, including right here in New Jersey.
You know, we're not in very good company when we look around the world and at other countries that are not addressing child marriage. Iran, for example, Saudi Arabia and Yemen, these are countries that don't specify a minimum age for marriage.
I want to make sure that the public knows that it's very important for this bill to pass because we're protecting our children. I've often heard that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, this is part of the village. We're raising these children. We're protecting these children.
What happened to Sherry Johnson is not just a tragedy. It's a violation on every level: human, legal, moral, and spiritual. A child cannot truly choose marriage. Forcing them into it takes away their voice, their freedom, and their future. Laws are supposed to protect the vulnerable, not trap them. But loopholes let wrongdoers escape justice, turning the law into a shield for the guilty instead of a safeguard for the innocent. Scripture calls us to defend the weak. Yet some leaders twisted faith to protect institutions and reputations instead of children. That is not righteousness, it's corruption. When families turn to churches and courts, they expect safety. Instead, these systems betrayed that trust. Silence is not neutral, it's complicity. If anyone says their God approves of this, we don't want that kind of God. Our God is a God of justice who defends the innocent, not the abuser. And churches protecting predators instead of children have chosen evil, not truth. Those who are moved by the Spirit of the Most High Yah will know truth and set free. There are no innocent bystanders when it comes to the harm and exploitation of children. If you see it and stay silent, you are not neutral, you are participating in evil by your inaction. To fail to act is to take the side of wickedness and lawlessness. And let's be honest, we cannot place our full hope in the world's courts for justice. The prophet Isaiah said it best: our courts oppose the righteous, and justice is nowhere to be found. Truth stumbles in the streets, and honesty has been outlawed. Yahuwah looked and was displeased to find there was no justice. So he himself stepped in to save them with his strong arm. Isaiah 59 verses 14 to 21 justice does not start in the courthouse. It starts with us refusing to be silent. It starts with us choosing truth over comfort, children over institutions, and Yah's righteousness over man's cover-ups. Silence is evil. Action is the only righteous response.